Welcome everyone to Bookaccino Live. We are so excited about the books that we have to present to you today. We're going to start off with your top picks from June. And this is always so much fun for us to see of what you actually picked last month. Your number one pick was The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray's The First Ladies was second. Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, which is on sale on August 1st, was your third. Ellen Hildebrand, The Five-Star Weekend, was your fourth. That's a book that my book club is reading. And I'm trying to think of the five different women or the four different women I would have invited with me as well. Viola Shipman's Famous in a Small Town, and Ruth Ware's 0 Days. So those were your top picks from June's presentation. And we always love to see what you like the best. As soon as your votes come in, for those who are attending live, we immediately start to look, and it's amazing because usually they stay the same. At least the top 3 or 4 don't change from what people initially say that they were excited about. So there's June. Then you also asked a survey question about, do you listen to digital audiobooks? And 29% or almost 30% said yes some of the time. 17% said all the time, which is 47.1% of you listen to digital audio. And then we've got some that prefer physical. We've got some that are interested in exploring it, and 44% do not listen and are really not ready to do that right now. So it's always interesting for us to see what our audience is trending and what they're enjoying doing. I know a lot of my friends are saying that they spend a lot of time walking and listening to digital audio, and as a result, they've increased the number of books that they're listening to. So that's good news. I'm going to start out with fiction today. The first book is Half-Life of a Stolen Sister by Rachel Cantor. So this is about how did the sisters Emily, Charlotte, and Anne write literary landmarks Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and Agnes Grey. What in their lives and circumstances and the choices they made and in their close but complex relationships with one another made such greatness possible? In her new novel, Rachel Cantor mends biographical fact with unruly invention. Half-Life of Stolen Sister perpetually transforms and renews its own style and methods, sometimes hewing close to the facts of the Brontes' lives as we know them, or as we think we know them, and at others radically reimagining the siblings. And I think the way that cover is done with the 3 women and then the lines going back and forth says a lot about what you're going to feel in the book. Next, we've got Hello, Stranger by Catherine Center. This is out this week. Sadie Montgomery never saw what was coming, literally. One month, she's celebrating the biggest achievement of her life, placing as a finalist in the North American Portrait Society competition. And the next, she's lying in a hospital and bed diagnosed with face blindness. She can see, but every face that she looks at now is a jumbled puzzle of disconnected features. But as she struggles to cope, hang on to her artistic dream, work through major family issues, and take care of her beloved dog, Peanut, she falls in love, not with just one man, but 2. Making judgment calls on anything right now is a nightmare. Not only if only her life were a little bit more in focus. Get it, folks? Sadie might be able to have it all. So seeing double. Okay, we'll see what happens. And next, touch anything. I have to do this again. Debbie Maycomer, I absolutely love this cover. I absolutely love these flowers. And Kristen Hanna says, it's wise, warm, witty, and charming, full of hope. This story celebrates the surprising and unexpected ways that family, friendship, and love can lift us up. So here we've got now a widow and an empty nester. Joan Sample has become something of a recluse, but now she's gathered the courage to take some long-awaited steps, hiring someone to tame her overgrown garden, joining a grief support group, and even renting out a room to a local college student. Across town, Maggie Herbert works mornings as a barista before rushing home to afternoon nursing classes. She lives with her alcoholic father and struggles to pay household bills. Her circumstances brighten when she finds a room for rent in Joan's home. But will Maggie's budding attraction to one of her favorite customers ruin the harmony she's only recently found with Joan? Meanwhile, what's Joan to make of mysterious landscaper who's been revitalizing her garden, a man who seems to harbor a past loss of his own? No Debbie Maycomer style. It's going to be one of those things that's going to be a feel-good book, but there's going to be a lot of people to work things through as they go through the story. Next, we've got The Summer of Songbirds by Kristy Woodson Harvey. It's also on sale this week. Nearly 30 years ago, in the wake of a personal tragedy, June Moore bought Camp Holly Springs and turned it into a thriving summer haven for girls. But now June is in danger of losing the place she sacrificed everything for, and she begins to realize how much she has used the camp to avoid facing difficulties in her life. June's niece, Daphne, met her two best friends, Lange and Mary Stewart, during the fateful summer at camp. They've all helped each other through hard times, from heartbreak and loss to substance abuse and unplanned pregnancy. And the three are inseparable, even in their 30s. But when attorney Daphne is confronted with a relationship from her past and a confidential issue at work becomes personal, she's faced with an impossible choice. Another really pretty cover. Somebody's Fool by Richard Russo. Okay, 10 years ago, after the death of magnetic Donald Sully Sullivan, the town of North Bath is going through a major transition as it's annexed by its much wealthier neighbor, Schuyler Springs. Peter, Sully's son, is still grappling with his father's tremendous legacy, as well as his relationship to his own son, Thomas. Meanwhile, the town's newly consolidated police department falls into the hands of Therese Bond after the resignation of Doug Raymer, the former North Bath police chief and Therese's ex-lover. That's a tough one, folks. When a decomposing body turns up in an abandoned hotel situated between the two towns, Therese and Raymer are drawn together again and forced to address their complicated attraction to one another. So he was also the author of Nobody's Fool. So this time it's Somebody's Fool. Connellys, A County Down. I've been hearing a lot of buzz about this book. It's by Tracey Lange. It's coming out on August 1st. When Tara Connelly is released from prison after serving 18 months on a drug charge, she knows rebuilding her life at 30 won't be easy. No money and no prospects. She returns home to live with her siblings, who are both busy with their own problems. Brother, a single dad, struggles with ongoing effects of a brain injury he sustained years ago. And her sister's fragile facade of calm and order is cracking under the burden of big secrets. Life becomes even more complicated when a cop who put her in prison keeps showing up unannounced, leaving Tara to wonder, what does he want from her now? While she tries to build a new career and hold her family together, she finds a chance at love in the most unlikely place. I'm going to guess the cop, but I'm just going out there, folks, on a limb. We'll see if I'm right. But when the Connellys' secrets start to unravel and threaten her future, they all must face their worst fears and come clean or risk losing each other forever. Her last book where we are the Brennans, and I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to interviewing Tracey this time around. If I remember correctly, I think this is a Book of the Month Club selection as well. Next, we've got Family Floor by Elizabeth Acevedo, coming on August 1st. Floor has a gift. She can predict to the day when somebody will die. Do you notice how many books are about the short string when somebody will die? Something's going to deliver to your porch to see when you'll die. There's an obsession here with when you will die. I'm going for a really big number right now when I think about that. So when she decides she wants a living wake, a party to bring her family and community together to celebrate the long life she's led, her sisters are surprised. Has Floor foreseen her own death or someone else's? Does she have other motives? She refuses to tell her sisters, Matilda, Pastora, and Camilla. Her sisters are hiding things too, and the next generations, cousin Una and Yadi, face tumult of their own. Spanning the 3 days prior to the wake, Family War traces the lives of each of the Marte women, weaving together past and present, Santo Domingo and New York City. So there you've got a live wake. Just think about that. Who would you invite? Next, we've got Tom Lake by Ann Patchett coming on August 1st. I think I've told you before that Ann Patchett really wanted this pub date. She's a bookseller and she feels that people are looking for great books still because they're on vacation in August, and she wanted this timing. So in the spring of 2020, Lara's 3 daughters returned to the family orchard in northern Michigan. While picking cherries, they begged their mother to tell them the story of Peter Duke, a famous actor with whom she shared both a stage and a romance years before at a theater company called Tom Lake. As Lara calls her past, her daughters examine their own lives and relationship with their mother, and they're forced to reconsider the world and everything they thought they knew. And understand, once again, why this book has daisies and cherries on the cover, I'm sure we will learn. So we've got Wine People. Oh, I know a lot of people who are wine people, by Michelle Wildgen. So this is coming on August 1st. Ren and Thessaly collide when they land coveted jobs at a glamorous New York City boutique wine importer. Hardworking, by the book Ren, comes from a modest background and has everything to prove, while Thessaly hails from a family of prestigious California growers, but she's plagued by self-doubt. Thrown together at work, where they expect to have exquisite palates, endless tolerance for alcohol and socializing, and the ability to sell, they regard each other with suspicion. It's only on an important European business trip, with everything on the line for both of them, that they unexpectedly forge an alliance that will change the course of their careers and their personal lives. There's wine people. I love the way she's diving into the glass of wine. Just notice that, and I've looked at this cover a number of times. This goes to some historical fiction. James Lee Burke, we've got Flags on the Bayou, which is out this week. In the fall of 1863, the Union Army is in control of the Mississippi River. Much of Louisiana, including New Orleans and Baton Rouge, is occupied. The Confederate Army is retreating towards Texas and being replaced by Redlegs, irregulars commanded by a maniacal figure, and enslaved men and women are beginning to glimpse freedom. When Hannah Laval, an enslaved woman working on the Wildgen plantation, is accused of murder, she goes on the run with Florence Milton, an abolitionist school teacher, dodging the local constable and the slave catchers that prowl the bayou. Wade Lufton, haunted by what he observed and did as a surgeon on the battlefield, has returned to his uncle's plantation to convalesce, where he becomes enraptured by Hannah. There you've got, James Lee Burke is a huge atmospheric book, and it's one of those books that when you finish reading it, you're going to feel like you were definitely there. Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley. It's out this week as well. In 1810, Mary Louise Christophe is crowned queen as her husband Henry I begins his reign over the first and only free Black nation in the West Hemisphere. But despite their newfound freedom, Haitians still struggle under mountains of debt to France and indifference from former allies in Britain and the new United States. Louise desperately tries to steer her country's political course as King Henry descends into a mire of mental illness. In 1820, King Henry is overthrown and dies by his own hand. Louise and her daughters manage to flee to Europe with their smuggled jewels. In exile, the resilient Louise redefines her role, recovering a fortune that Henry had lost and establishing herself as an equal to the kings of European nations. Vanessa finds she's passionate about finding these women in history that were of color and who brought themselves to all kinds of fame. Her last book was Island Queen, and it was about a woman that was ruling an island and with the power that she had. So she very much likes to take these women and put them in positions of power and see how this all explodes or how it all works. And everything is based on history. Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead. Yes. The author of the Harlem Shuffle continues his Harlem saga in a powerful and hugely entertaining novel that summons 1970s New York in all its seedy glory. Oh, I so remember working in New York in the 1970s in all its seedy glory. Times Square looks nothing like it looks right now. Crook Manifesto is a darkly funny tale of a city under siege, but it's also a sneakily searching portrait of the meaning of family. This kaleidoscope portrait of Harlem is sure to stand as one of the all-time great evocations of a place and a time. And it was a very special place and time in New York. I can still visualize what Times Square looked like at that time. Evergreen by Naomi Hirahara. I was a huge fan of her last book, which was Clark and Division. And this one, Lisa C. says, is accurate, heart-rending, and eye-opening. It's coming on August 1st. It's been 2 years since Aki Ito and her family were released from the Manzabar Detention Center and resettled in Chicago with other Japanese Americans. Now the Itos have finally been allowed to return home to California. The entire Japanese American community is starting from scratch, with thousands of people living in dismal refugee camps while they struggle to find new houses and jobs in overcrowded Los Angeles. Aki is working as a nurse's aide at the Japanese hospital in Boyle Heights when an elderly Issei man is admitted with suspicious injuries. She goes to seek out his son, and she's shocked to recognize her husband's best friend, Bobby. Could he be guilty of elder abuse? Only a few days later, Little Tokyo is rocked by a murder at a low-income hotel where the wannabes live. What secrets have they been hiding? And how can Aki protect her husband from getting tangled up in a murder investigation? I love that Naomi has taken, we always think is this the internment camps in California. She talked about relocating people to Chicago. And now I love that she's taking everyone back and what they find. Doing something special with this book. So, what's your book group reading this month for both July and August? We know that some groups don't meet both months during the summer. So we want to give a number of people the opportunity to enter this contest. If you're in a book group, all you have to do is go out to Reading Group Guides, tell us what you're reading, and you're eligible to win. Up to three groups will win 12 copies of the book for their book group. Naomi does a terrific job. If you haven't read Clark and Division yet, I highly recommend reading that as well. So Bet's on Selection. I interviewed about her about it, and I'm really looking forward to interviewing her about this one as well. Next, we've got Thrillers and Mysteries. Start with Jake Tapper. Yes, Jake Tapper, guys. The Jake Tapper from CNN. His book is All the Demons Are Here. It's out this week. It's 1977. Ike and Lucy, the kids of Senator Charlie and Margaret Mortar, are grown up and in trouble. U.S. Marine Ike has gone AWOL after a military operation gone terribly wrong. Now he's off the grid working on the pit crew of the moody stuntmaster, hold for this one, Evel Knievel. His sister Lucy has become the star reporter of a brand new Washington, D.C. tabloid and has fallen in with a wealthy, shady British family that owns the newspaper. As they deal with the weirdness and menace of the time, Ike and Lucy soon realize that their worlds are not full of just compromises and bad choices, but danger as well. As their lives begin to spiral out of control, they spiral towards one another, and decisions they make could mean life or death, not only for them, but also for their beloved parents. There's a thriller. His last book was The Devil May Dance. Next, we've got Wednesdays at 1 by Sandra Miller. It's out this week as well. Dr. Gregory Weber, a downed clinical psychologist, feels increasingly disconnected. His marriage is strained, his children are distant, and he can't stop fixating on an unforgivable mistake he made when he was 17. This book shows that even therapists have issues, people. Let's take heart. So when an unscheduled client named Mira starts appearing in his office every Wednesday at 1 with knowledge about his past, Gregory quickly grows obsessed with her. She a new patient, a secret referral from a colleague, someone connected to his teenage transgression. As the attraction to Mira grows more intense with each session, so does her probing scrutiny of him. And soon Gregory's professional boundaries begin to dissolve, and he becomes the patient desperate to uncover his connection to this mystery woman and find out what she wants from him. And there they meet, Wednesdays at 1. Windfall by Wendy Corsi Staub is also out this week. It's one of our summer reading titles. I believe it's a title that we're giving away tomorrow. So it's a little heads up for you. The contest will begin at noon and it will end 24 hours later on Friday. So when 3 former roommates reunite for a birthday weekend in Las Vegas, the lottery ticket they buy on a whim has the winning numbers, giving them a $1 billion windfall. They turn to Shay Daniels, a sudden wealth manager who promises to guide them through the pitfalls of having more money than they ever imagined. The trio travels to a secluded California mansion where Shay and her staff cater to their every whim. The house is purportedly cursed, the last place a missing movie star was seen alive. The weekend turns to terror, which you know is going to happen in a thriller, when they discover they are trapped. And when history repeats itself and one of them disappears, the one holding the $1 billion ticket, the others must face the fact that either their friend has betrayed them or a predator is lurking. And Lisa Unger says this is knockout, a summer must read. Then we've got The Block Party, Jamie Day, coming on July 18th. The residents of the exclusive cul-de-sac on Alton Road are entangled in a web of secrets and scandal, utterly unknown to the outside world and even to each other. The night of their annual summer block party, there's been a murder. Who did it and why it takes the readers back 1 year earlier as rivalries and betrayals unfold, discovering that the real danger lies within their own block. Nothing and no one is ever as it seems. And I always say, because I've done this book for a couple of presentations, you never know who your neighbors really are. I was watching my neighbor come out before. She was talking to the landscapers. What were they saying? What's going on? I love the pull quote for this book, "You'll die if you miss it." And Hildebrand has said it's like a firecracker on a hot summer night. And you know that's going to be something that you want to take a look at. It's also one of our summer reading titles coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next, we've got The Collector by Daniel Silva. It's on sale on July 18th. You all know Daniel Silva's Gabriel Lone series. In this one, legendary art restorer and spy Gabriel Lone joins forces with a brilliant and beautiful master thief to track down the world's most valuable missing painting. But soon he finds himself in a desperate race to prevent an unthinkable conflict between Russia and the West. So there we go for Daniel Silva's latest. Next, we've got Cutting Teeth by Chandler Baker, and this is also going to be another summer giveaway title. Darby, Mary Beth, and Rhea are on a personal quest to reclaim aspects of their identities subsumed by motherhood, their careers, their sex lives, their bodies. Their children, though, disrupt their plans when an unsettling medical condition begins to go around the little academy, preschool. The children are craving blood. Okay, what does that say? When young teacher is found dead and the only potential witnesses are 10 adorable 4-year-olds, soon it becomes clear that the children are not just witnesses, but they're also suspects, and so are their mothers. So police begin to look more closely. The children's ability to bleed their parents dry becomes deadly serious. Have to see what that means. She's author of The Whisper Network, which I completely enjoyed. Next, we've got Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. I am reading this book right now. Coming out on July 18th. Reclusive Sally Diamond causes outrage by trying to incinerate her dead father. Okay, let's get real, people. Her father said, "When I die, just take me out and burn my body." She took him literally. And now she's the center of attention, not only from the hungry media and police detectives, but also from a sinister voice from the past that she doesn't remember. As she begins to discover the horrors of her early childhood, Sally steps into a world for the first time, making new friends, big decisions, and learning people don't always mean what they say. But who is the man observing Sally from the other side of the world? Why does he call her Mary? And why does her new neighbor seem to be obsessed with her? Sally's trust issues are about to be severely challenged. And Sally is definitely someplace on the spectrum. You've got to watch what you tell her because she does exactly what you say to do. Like he said, just burn my body. Next, we've got Everybody Here Is Lying by Shari Lapena. She's author of The Couple Next Door. Shari's what I call a one-sit read. When I sit down and start reading her, I cannot stop. And I talked to our reviewer who's going to be reviewing this book for us, and she completely agrees. She goes, Shari's a complete page turner. It's coming on July 25th. So William Wooler is a family man on the surface, but he's been having an affair that ended horribly this afternoon in a motel up the road. So he returns to his house, devastated and angry, to find his difficult 9-year-old daughter, Avery, unexpectedly home from school, who loses his temper. Hours later, Avery's family declares her missing. Suddenly, the neighborhood doesn't feel so safe, and William isn't the only man on the street who's hiding a lie. Witnesses come forward with information that may or may not be true. Avery's neighbors become increasingly unhinged. Who took Avery Wooler? And Lisa Jules said, this is the most addictive book I've read in ages. And I bet when I finish reading it, I will say the same thing. Page turner, folks, but lay out time for it. Prom Mom by Laura Littman, coming out July 25th. Another summer reading title. Amber Glass has spent her entire adult life putting as much distance as possible between her and her hometown of Baltimore, where she fears she will be forever known as Prom Mom, the girl who allegedly killed her baby on the night of the prom after her date, Joe Simpson, abandoned her to pursue the girl he really liked. But when circumstances bring Amber back to the city, she realizes she can have a second chance as long as she stays away from Joe, who's now married. The problem is Amber can't stay away from Joe, and Joe finds it's increasingly hard for him to ignore Amber. Against the surreal backdrop of the 2020, couldn't pick a different, crazier time, and early 2021, the two are slowly drawn to each other and eventually cross the line that they've been trying not to cross. And then Joe asks Amber to help him do the unthinkable. And there's Prom Mom. Gone Tonight by Sarah Pekkanen, coming on August 1st. Catherine Sterling thinks she knows her mother. Ruth Sterling is quiet, hardworking, and lives for her daughter. All her life, it's been just the two of them against the world. But now Catherine is ready to spread her wings, move from home, and begin a new career. And Ruth will do anything to prevent that from happening. Ruth thinks she knows her daughter. Catherine would never rebel, would never question anything about her mother's past or background. But when Ruth's desperate quest to keep her daughter by her side begins to reveal cracks in Ruth's carefully constructed world, both mother and daughter begin a dance of deception. She was the co-writer of The Wife Between Us. And Colleen Hoover, who is everywhere these days, so this is riveting, original, powerful mother-daughter story that kept me glued to the pages. Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister. 22-year-old Olivia has been missing for 1 day and counting. She was last seen on CCTV entering a dead-end alley and not coming back out again. Julia, the detective heading up the search for Olivia, thinks she knows what to expect: a desperate family, a ticking clock, and long hours away from her husband and daughter. She has no idea how close to home this case is going to get, because the criminal at the heart of the disappearance has something she never expected. His weapon isn't a gun or a knife. It's a secret, her worst one, and her family's safety depends on one thing. Julia must not find out what happened to Olivia and must frame someone else for her murder. It sounds like one really complicated book. It's his weapon isn't a gun or a knife. It's a secret, her worst one. So there you go. Sandra Brown, great summer read for me for floating in the pool in August. Here's what we've got. The Texas County Fair children's book author Elle Portman. She's enjoying a rare night out with her 2-year-old son, Charlie. Just about head home, a shooter opens fire into the crowd. Also caught up in the melee is corporate consultant Calder Hudson. He's frustrated and confused when he wakes up in a hospital after undergoing emergency surgery on his arm. The doctor tells him that he was lucky. As far as gunshot wounds go, he flew through remarkably well. Others weren't so lucky, which instills in Calder a fierce determination to get justice, a goal that is shared by Elle. So there's Out of Nowhere. And unfortunately, too much of this is happening out of nowhere. Memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. Got a nice selection this month. First, we've got Bogie and Bacall by William J. Mann. Bogie Bacall, William J. Mann offers a deep and comprehensive look at Lauren Bacall, Humphrey Bogart, and the unlikely love they shared. He digs deep into the celebrities' personal lives and considers the relationship from surprising angles. It should be totally fun. Next, we've got Jackie by J. Randy Taraborelli. It's on sale on July 18th. Based on hundreds of interviews with families, friends, and lovers over a 30-year period, as well as previously unreleased material from the JFK Library, Kennedy historian J. Randy Taraborelli, so sorry guys, paints an unforgettable new portrait of a woman whose flaws and contradictions only serve to make her more iconic. I have 3 lives, she told her former lover: public, private, and secret. In this revealing biography, readers will become familiar intimately with all 3. Pulling the Chariot of the Sun by Shane McRae. Actually heard Shane talk about this book. Such an interesting story. It's out on August 1st from Scribner. Shane McRae was 3 years old. His grandparents kidnapped him and took him back to suburban Texas. His mom was white and his dad was black. To hide his blackness from him, his maternal grandparents stole him from his father. In the years that followed, they manipulated and controlled him, refusing to acknowledge his heritage, all the while believing they were doing the best for him. For their own safety and to ensure the kidnapping remained a success, Shane's grandparents had to make sure that he never knew the full story. So he was raised to participate in his own disappearance. Despite elaborate fabrications and unreliable memories, Shane begins to reconstruct his own story and forge his own identity. And gradually, the truth unveils itself, and with the truth comes a pain of reuniting with his father and finding his own place in the world. So this is Pulling Chariot of the Sun, a memoir of a kidnapping. He was so articulate talking about the situation and what happened. Some September titles to look forward to, and we have a great group of them. Starting out with Amazing Grace Adams. If you look at her finger, you see her hand, you see what's hidden behind. I rooted for Grace from the first sentence. I shall say no more about that. It's on sale on September 5th. Grace Adams gave birth, blinked, and suddenly she's 45, perimenopausal and stalled. The unhappiest age you can be, according to The Guardian. And today she's really losing it. Stuck in traffic, she finally has had enough. To the astonishment of everyone, she gets out of the car and simply walks away. Grace sets off across London, armed with a 200-pound cake, to win back her estranged daughter on her 16th birthday. Because today is the day she'll remind her daughter that no matter how much we fall, we can always get back up again. Because Grace Adams used to be amazing, but everyone seems to have forgotten. Grace is about to remind them, and most important, remind herself. So there you've got Amazing Grace Adams. So we got The Fraud by Zadie Smith, coming on September 5th. It's 1873. So Eliza Touchot is the Scottish housekeeper and cousins by marriage of a once famous novelist, William Ainsworth, with whom she has lived for over 30 years. Miss Touchet suspects her cousin of having no talent, his successful friend, Mr. Charles Dickens, of being a bully and a moralist, and England being a land of facades. The Tichborne trial, wherein a lower-class butcher from Australia claimed he was in fact the rightful heir of a sizable estate and title, captivates Miss Touchot in all of England. Is Sir Roger Tichborne really who he says he is, or is he a fraud? There we've got The Fraud from Zadie Smith. Next from Stephen King, coming on September 5th. When Peggy Dahl calls the Finder Keepers Detective Agency, hoping for help locating her missing daughter, Holly Gibney is reluctant to accept the case. Partner Pete has COVID. Her very complicated mother has just died, and Holly's meant to be on leave. But something in Peggy Hall's desperate voice makes it impossible for Holly to turn her down. Mere blocks from where Ronnie Dahl disappeared were the professors Rodney and Emily Harris. They're the picture of bourgeois respectability. They're harboring an unholy secret in the basement of their well-kept, book-lined home, one that might be related to Bonnie's disappearance. And it will prove nearly impossible to discover what they're up to. They're savvy, they're patient, and they're ruthless. So there you've got Holly, which is never something so joyous when it's in Stephen King's hands. Next, we've got The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. His book has been getting so much buzz. He's the author of This Tender Land. I'm sure many of you remember this book, and people who have read it have said it is even better than his other two standalone novels. So, Ordinary Grace and This Tender Land. So here's what the story's about. Memorial Day, as the people of Jewell, Minnesota gather to honor the sacrifice of so many sons in the war of the past, the half-clothed body of a wealthy landowner, Jimmy Quinn, is found floating in the Alabaster River, dead from a shotgun blast. Investigation of the murder falls to Sheriff Brody Dern, a highly decorated war hero who still carries the physical and emotional scars from his military service. Vicious rumors begin to circulate that the killer must be Noah Bluestone, a Native American World War II veteran who has recently returned to Jewell. Caught up in the torrent of anger that sweeps through Jewell are a war widow and her adolescent son, the intrepid publisher of the local newspaper, an aging deputy, and a crusading female warrior, all of whom struggle with their own tragic histories and harbor secrets that Quinn's death threatens to expose. You know, from Kent, it's going to be a very atmospheric and very character-driven book. It's going to be one of those books that you sit and hold afterwards and say, wow, it was really quite well done. So if people are saying it's better than This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace, I really want to see what's there. Next, from Paulette Giles, we got Shaneville, coming on September 13th. Union soldier John Shaneville suffered a traumatic head wound in battle. By the time he returned home, the Civil War was over. Tragedy awaited. His beloved sister and her family had been brutally murdered. Their killer goes by many names. He fought for the North and wore a badge in the name of the law. The man John knows as A.J. Dodd is little more than a rabid animal, slaughtering without reason or remorse, needing to be put down. John will not be deterred, not by the U.S. Marshals who threaten to arrest him for murder should he succeed, and not by Victoria Ravis, the telegraphist, aiding him in his death-driven quest, yet hoping he'll choose to embrace a life with her instead. So this is a novel of murder, loss, and vengeance. Next, we've got Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. Isaacson does such a good job of doing biographies of people, giving you a 360 view, and that's the reason we're including this in the presentation. It's on sale on September 12th. When Elon Musk was a kid in South Africa, he was regularly beaten by bullies, but the physical scars were minor compared to the emotional ones inflicted by his father, an engineer, rogue, and charismatic fantasist. His father's impact on his psyche would linger. He developed into a tough yet vulnerable man-child, prone to abrupt Jekyll and Hyde mood swings, with an exceedingly high tolerance for risk, craving for drama, an epic sense of mission, and a maniacal intensity that was callous and at times destructive. For 2 years, Walter Isaacson shadowed Musk, attended his meetings, walked his factories with him, and spent hours interviewing him, his family, friends, co-workers, and adversaries. Yep, that's a 360 view that I tell you that he does. The result is this really revealing inside story filled with amazing tales of triumphs and turmoil, and addresses the question, are the demons that drive Musk also what it takes to drive innovation and progress? So there's Elon Musk's book. Next, we've got Mick Herron. We've got The Secret Hours. This is coming from Soho Crime, and they're really excited about this book coming September 12th. 2 years ago, a hostile prime minister launched the Monochrome inquiry, investigating historical overreaching by the British Secret Service. Monochrome's mission was to ferret out any misconduct by any MI5 officer, and allowed Griselda Fleet and Malcolm Kyle, the two civil servants seconded to the project, access to all confidential information in the service's archives. Now that the administration has created Monochrome that has been ousted, the investigation is a total bust, and Griselda and Malcolm are stuck watching their career prospects are washed away. Until the evening of the shuddering, when an MI5 case appears without explanation. It's the buried history of a classified operation in 1994 Berlin, an operation that ended in tragedy and scandal, whose cover-up has rewritten 30 years of service history. So there's The Secret Hours. Next, we've got from Lauren Groff, the author of Fates and Furies, The Vaster Wilds. Heard her speak about this book as well. She is so enthusiastic, and she's so into the world building that she does when she's creating a book. And I love hearing her describe it. She's a big runner. And when she was out, there were all kinds of things that were spewing through her head about what would happen like out in the wilderness when you were like running around and there's this colonial settlement. And from there, the story started to spring. Servant girl escapes from a colonial settlement in the wilderness. She carries nothing with her but her wits, few possessions, the spark of God that burns hot within her. What she finds in this terra incognita is beyond the limits of her imagination and will bend her belief in everything her own civilization has taught her. So there's The Vaster Wilds. Next, we've got The Wren from Anne Enright. Nell McDargo never knew her grandfather, the celebrated Irish poet Phil Madara, but his love poems seem to speak directly to her. Restless and wryly assured, at 22, Nell leaves her mother Carmel's ordinary home to find her own voice as a writer. As she chases obsessive love, damage, and transcendence, her grandfather's poetry seems to guide her home. Carmel knows the magic of Dado's poetry too well. His poems to her, Phil envisions his daughter as a bright-eyed wren, ascending an escape from his hand. But it is Phil who departs, abandoning his wife and his two young daughters. Carmel struggles to reconcile the poet with the father, whose desertion scars her life, along with that of her fiercely dutiful sister and their gentle, cancer-ridden mother. There's The Wren. Anne Wright was the winner of the Booker Prize. So we got The Armor of Light coming from Ken Follett. He's the author of The Pillars of the Earth. And The Armor of Light is the fourth installment in his Kingsbridge series and the long-awaited sequel to A Column of Fire. The spinning jenny was invented in 1770. And with that, a new era of manufacturing and industry changed lives everywhere within a generation. A world filled with unrest wrestles for control over this new world order. As institutions are challenged and toppled in unprecedented fashion, ripples of change ricochet through the characters' lives as they are left to reckon with the future and a world they must rebuild from the ashes of war. There's The Armor of Light. This is The Museum of Failures from Trudy Umberger. I'm really looking forward to reading this book. Remy Wadia left India for the United States long ago, carrying his resentment of his mother with him. He's now returned to Bombay to adopt a baby and to see his elderly mother for the first time in several years. Discovering that his mother's in the hospital, has stopped talking, and seems to have given up on life, he's struck with guilt for not realizing how sick she has become. His unexpected appearance and attention revives her and enables her to return to her home. But when Remy stumbles on an old photograph, shockingly long-held family secrets surface. As the secrets unravel and Remy's mother begins communicating again, he finds himself reevaluating his entire childhood, his relationship to his parents, and his harsh judgment of the decisions and events long hidden from him. But most of all, he must learn to forgive others for their failures and human frailties. Okay, so we've got some notable July paperbacks. We've got Freedom from Sebastian Junger, The Last Party by Claire McIntosh, which was a Bets On selection last year, and I also have an interview with Claire. The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, Philippa Gregory's Dawnlands, Alex Feeney's Daisy Darker, which also was a Bets On, and Suspect by Scott Turow. So there are 6 great paperbacks this coming out this month. We are continuing our summer reading contests with select books given away on given days. Our contest for today is Her Too, and it will be available for 24 hours, ending tomorrow at noon. So if you jump on it after you get finished the presentation, you can enter to win. What's your book group reading this month? Remember, the contest is Evergreen by Naomi Hirahara. Tell us what your book group's reading. You're eligible to win one of 3 sets of 12 copies of the book for your book group. So you can all be reading Evergreen. Contest is running in July and August because we know a lot of groups don't meet over the summer. I've got 19 Bets On selections so far, and I will be adding to this with Little Monsters, the second half, and Her Too, which I'll be writing all about in the next week or so. So 3 more titles, 19, so now we're up to 23. I'm being very judicious this year, but I've read 3 books when we were off on break, and I enjoyed every single one, and I want to share them with you. Recent book reporter talk to authors are Lisa C., Linwood Barclay, Nancy Horan, Alice Elliott Dark. I'm picking up on doing more interviews now. We took a little lull over the last 2 weeks because we had a lot going on, including our evening event and this program. I also may have jury duty, so starting on Friday, fingers crossed, there are no trials. And so I have got a few things set up for next week as well. Jury duty providing. Remember, our next Bookaccino live event is going to be in September. We're not going to do anything in July and August. We're going to discuss Fellowship Point, which is Book Reporter Bets On selection. It's now available in paperback. It's a long book, so we're giving you time to read it. It's a beautifully written book. We came up with the idea for doing this when I interviewed Alice a couple of months ago, and she said she's always wanted to have a big discussion about her book. So we're really looking forward to this evening, and we hope you're going to be able to join us. And our next Bookaccino Live preview event will be on Wednesday, August 9th at 2:00 in the afternoon. Hope you join us. We'll do books releasing from August 8th through September 5th, and we'll be peeking ahead at October. And I cannot believe we're already looking at October. I still want to relish and enjoy summer. So there's where we are. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We so appreciate your being a part of this presentation. And that is Bookaccino Live.